Hello, humans! Dr. Sarah happening here with Performance is Happening, and we help humans live happier, healthier lives, especially those individuals who are neurodivergent. And today I'm so happy to be doing part of the pre-conference interview series for the Art and Science of Health Promotion, which is going down in March. And you can still get your ticket, and the way to get your ticket is going to be linked below. So Kia's going to tell us all about himself and his conference, his session at the conference. And if you want to join, you have to be there in person and you can buy your ticket up until the event. Okay, I forgot before we press recording. How do you pronounce your last name so I don't get it wrong?
Afcari.
Afcari. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to read his speaker bio. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. Kia is the director of Greater Good Workplaces at Greater Good Science Center. He has over 20 years of experience helping leaders, teams, and organizations with collaborative change, and he has served as a consultant to a wide variety of organizations, including tech, biotech, fintech companies, healthcare organizations, universities, NGOs, UN agencies, and nonprofits. Super impressive. Kia grounds his work in the science of prosociality and uses creative methods such as instant dance parties. I love that. And ball-informed theater techniques to achieve results. He is certified. He is a certified executive coach, an appreciative inquiry facilitator, Zenger Folkman 360 extraordinary leader facilitator, and core strengths facilitator. Kia's TED Talk, How We Can Reshape Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Together, has over 77,000 views. And for his work supporting major cultural change efforts at scale, Kia was awarded the Chief Learning Officer magazine's Silver Award for Innovation for his accomplishments in helping to shift the organizational culture of UC Berkeley's 8,000 staff. That's very impressive, Kia. Nice work.
Thank you, Sarah. Great to meet you. Great to be with you today.
Awesome. Okay, so you spent years helping organizations navigate culture change through the science of prosociality. What originally drew you to this work and made it stick for you?
Hmm. That's a great question. I mean, I actually think what drew me to this work is way back in my childhood. I was living in Paris, France when I was about 6 years old, and a revolution happened in my country in Iran. And we had to come to the United States, and I went straight from Paris to kind of a rural town in Louisiana. And it was during the hostage crisis, where it was not cool to be kind of an Iranian kid. So it was very unwelcoming. I had an unwelcoming experience where kids were like, Iranians go home and bomb Iran and all these things. And so, although it was a difficult experience, it was sort of, I think, the crux of where I started to want to create places that are welcoming, places that are healthy, where people are healthy and happy. And so that's how I sort of got the spark to be in work with organizations, thinking about organizational culture. Um, and then I had this crazy job to try to shift the culture of UC Berkeley, which, had about 8,000 staff at that time and, big financial crisis, but people were just kind of mean to each other. It wasn't a great place to work. It was very siloed and bureaucratic. Um, and I found out about the Greater Good Science Center, and about, and I came to them and I said, how do I increase pro-social behaviors in the workplace? And they were extremely helpful to me. And so that's kind of how I've gotten to this work of helping organizations and then bringing the science into it to really make things stick.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you seeked out the Greater Good Science Center and now you're working with them and for
Yeah,
them. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
sure. The Greater Good is a really interesting organization. It's been around for about 20 years, and the kernel of it, the inception of it, was really a partnership between scientists and journalists, really. So the idea was, how do we take the latest in the science of compassion and mindfulness and happiness and well-being, and how do we translate that so people can use it on a regular basis? And so, the greater good started putting out magazines and articles and podcasts and all these things, and really grew so big where, over 1 million people per month are coming to the greater good for this content. And so that has morphed somewhat into now we're bringing it into different contexts. Like we have an education team that brings this into the schools. We have a bridging differences team that's all focused on bridging, political divides and different kinds of divides. And my work at the Greater Good is to bring this into workplaces. How do we bring the science of prosociality, of well-being into workplaces and see that it's a win-win for both?
I love that. I think it's so important. And I think it's great how they have like they're different. You get to do this in workplaces, but it sounds like they're doing it all over. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting to your session, I wrote down what time it is. So I'll tell the humans at the end. But your session focuses on the neuroscience of social connection, positive emotion, and resilience. Why do these capacities matter so much, especially right now for leaders?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very difficult time for a lot of people. There's a lot of uncertainty, technological uncertainty, change with AI and all these things happening, political uncertainty. And we had a real shift from the pandemic where, people went home and lots of benefits were gained from that, but also a real loneliness epidemic, a system of isolation. And so leaders are sort of trying to manage all this. And this idea of resilience and connection is really important. And for this, this session, I'm partnered with my boss, Emiliana Simon Thomas. She's the neuroscientist who really understands the science behind all this and has been studying this for years, and also has led the world's largest course on happiness, the Science of Happiness, which had over 1 million people sign up from around the world. So just to be partnered with her on this and to just get to geek out about what the latest in science is telling us about these things is really fun, really awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It sounds like she's bringing more like the sciencey side, and you get to bring the fun side because you're using
Yeah.
creative methods like movement, theater, embodied experiences. Why do you think those kind of approaches unlock something special in the brain when compared to like traditional trainings?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of trainings and workplace things are really dry. Just to be,
Yeah,
very blunt
100% agreed. Yes.
blunt about it, like death by PowerPoint, and somehow to think that you're going to change people's behavior through, a series of bullet points on a slide deck, I think is very difficult to achieve. So I was trained by this guy named Augusto Boal, who is a Brazilian theater practitioner, and he has a method where you can actually test out, it's kind of a skit format where let's say we're trying to work on dealing with microaggressions in the workplace. And we can actually play out a skit around that. And we have a protagonist in this little skit whose job it is to, fix the situation, to make it go well, to be a positive upstander instead of a bystander. And so anybody can yell freeze and jump in and try to make the situation go well. And then someone else yells freeze and jumps in. And so we get to see, first of all, we get to practice. One of the things I heard from Adam Grant is work is one of the few kind of domains where we never practice. We just jump right into it.
It's
Whereas in
true.
sports, we practice things. So, dealing with a microaggression is very difficult to do. It takes a lot of skill. So using things like theater, I think people are going to remember it more. They're going to have said like, "Hey, I did it in the workshop. Maybe I can do it in real life." It's I think just much more engaging for the brain. You're going to remember things better, and more likely to actually have an impact.
Yeah. Well, I love that too. And you touched on like we're humans, right? So these are life transferable skills. So yeah, you're doing this like we're just pretending and here's how you deal with microaggressions. But I always like to say, once you know something, you can't unknow it. So then that's a transferable skill that you can use in your relationship or with other humans that maybe aren't being so kind. It's not just for the workplace. It's great that you learn it in the workplace, but use that to be able to it's a skill that's transferable. I think that's amazing.
Totally. Yeah, and the way that Emiliana and I usually tag team on sessions like this is we'll begin with an experience. So let's say we're talking about a connection or positivity. Um, we'll have them experience a session in which they're actually getting to connect with others. And then we'll break down the science of connection. And then we'll say, okay, here's a practice that you can try like next Tuesday. Here's a like a regular ritual, because I think the way to make change in an organization is to build a culture of that, right? If you just do a one-time thing, it's not going to change the culture of your organization. But if you do regular rituals, like an appreciation practice where you just go around the room and you appreciate the person to your left, it can have a huge difference on the tenor of that meeting. Such a simple thing. So that's the way we generally tend to train on these things. It's experience it. Here's the science behind it, and here's something you can try next week.
I love that. I think that actionable piece is so important because, come on, brain, go. Ebbinghaus. Is that the right one? I might be getting the wrong. The adult learning forgetting curve.
Hmm.
It's because, as you said, like most of these workplace trainings are like a PowerPoint. And unless you give them the time to be able to apply the information that you're learning, like how does this work in real life? 24 hours, I think it's 70% is forgotten. And then by the end of the week, it's 90%. But I think it's amazing, like giving them skills in the moment or being like, okay, now bring this to your work and do the things, burns it in a little bit better.
Yeah, it's like it's easy to talk about, creating a joyous workplace, but if you get people up dancing and clapping the music, they'll be like, "Oh wow, I feel this, and I want this feeling for my team." It just hits different.
Yeah. Yeah. Curious. This is going off script a little bit. Um, what's your favorite music to use to get even those people who like don't want to stand up? Do you have like a go-to song or like type of music that gets everybody?
Yeah, I actually do. I actually usually start with a Jackson 5 song called "I Want You Back," because it starts with this little piano lick and it goes dun 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 dun, dun, and it's just like, whoa, something's happening, and I just say, everybody stand up and clap along with me. We're gonna dance, and somehow people do it. I've been doing it for many years, and for some reason, people just jump in and they say, is this okay to be doing at work?" But generally, it works out.
Yeah, it's great. You're directing them and then they have the herd mentality. Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Okay. Your work is very action orientated, which I love. What's one small science-backed practice leaders can start using right away to strengthen connection and well-being on their teams?
It's a great one. Well, I think one of the things that we talk about is sort of a sh simple thing you could do at the beginning of a meeting is like we call it the shared identity practice. And the idea is really to find out what you have in common in certain categories. So could be simple as preferences for or against food, preferences for different kinds of experiences or activities. And you kind of make it a bit of a competitive game to see, which group of three can come up with the most commonalities of things that they prefer. Um, it can be a simple thing like that to build a bit of connection, at the beginning of a meeting. So things like that, I think, are huge.
I love that. I think that's a really easy way to break down like the human bias immediately. Because you might have seen someone around the office for even years and you've never taken time to even understand that maybe you both like crocheting or like gardening, whatever it is. But I think that's great because it starts that line of communication, but then also very quickly with shared identities and interests and whatnot, you can like see that human as a human, which I love. I've done that exercise as well, and I think it's very good. Nice. Okay. Um, You've been leading. The why kind leaders win work. What does the science say about kindness and performance, especially in high pressure or high stress environments?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question because, I think a lot of us have been seeing the opposite of kindness in leadership. We've been seeing cruelty in leadership. We've been seeing lots of, kind of billionaires, making lots of money, but not necessarily leading with kindness. And so there's this sort of idea out there that nice people finish last. And I wanted to know, like, is this actually true? So because I'm at the Greater Good, I get to delve into the science of this. And I found a group of researchers who studied 3,500 CEOs. This is work done by Wei Ge and Mei Feng. And they looked at these 3,500 CEOs of publicly traded companies, and they assessed which of these CEOs were kind or pro-social, as we call in the language. And so the first analysis they did was, do these CEOs give their time and money outside of the company? Do they serve on nonprofit boards? Do they give their money? That was the first filter to see like which ones of these CEOs are kind. And then the second filter was they actually analyzed their earnings calls. And when the company was doing poorly, did they take the blame themselves or did they blame their team? That was the first thing. And when the company was doing well, did they take the credit themselves or did they really give the credit to their teams? That was sort of the second filter to see which are the kind CEOs.
Hmm.
And after that whole analysis, they got of a smaller group of kind CEOs, and they rigorously assessed their profitability. And these were professors of accounting who did this research, so they really understand profitability. And of course, they found that these kind CEOs were more profitable. Their companies were more profitable. They created sort of almost like an insurance policy where they treated their employees well. They had lower turnover. Their leadership teams were more aligned. They were better able to execute and just more profitable. So this idea that kind leaders finish last or is wrong. And the second piece of research they're doing now is actually seeing whether this kindness aspect of their being improves their own careers. And it turns out that the kind leaders are, do better in terms of their careers as well. So that I think is good because it's kind of going in the opposite of the face of what we're hearing. There is this other way of succeeding. And it's not to say that you can't be kind of a cruel person and succeed. We know that that's a path, but we want to show there's another path to success, and that kindness can actually be a big driver of that.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think that it's amazing that someone's doing research on that. And I mean, that's what I see in my work. The CEOs that are doing phenomenal things and running these huge organizations are exactly that. They donate their time, they donate their money, regardless of how the organization is going. They're so kind. All their credit goes to their humans. Like, that's what I feel in my heart, and it's nice that the data is actually backing that up. Like as we
Yeah.
say, kindness and is free, but I 100% believe in what energy you give out, you'll get it back 10 times, tenfold. So, yeah. everybody wins when you are just nice to one another and treat people with respect. And, like the things we take for granted that it's interesting. Um, yeah, but that's amazing. I love that. Okay. For leaders or practitioners who are attending the Art and Science of Health Promotion Conference, what do you hope that they experience or take away from your session?
I think the big thing is to really understand how to create a series of rituals that make a difference. And to base that in what we call CPR, connection, positivity, and resilience. So thinking about those three frames, connection, positivity, and resilience, and what are some regular practices, regular rituals that you can embed into your culture. Every Thursday we do this, or at the beginning of our staff meetings, we do that, that can start to grow that culture. Um, and then also to offer them some resources that we have. We have a totally free project called the Big Joy Project, where it's not only a way to improve your own happiness, but it is a giant science experiment, one of the largest of its kind, where hundreds of thousands of people all over the world are signing up for this. You get a little text or an email saying, try this practice for 7 days. And they're all research-backed practices. And it actually measures your happiness. So it's sort of a science project and something any organization could actually launch. Let's say, like, hey, let's do a big joy challenge and let's have our whole team go through this and see what the effects are. So that's another thing I'd love for them to walk away with.
That's awesome. If an organization wants to be involved and in the Big Joy Project and they're not coming to the conference, is that going to be available to them? Or are you going to say, nope, only if you come to the conference and come to my session?
It's actually freely available right now for everyone. So
Yay.
anybody can search the Big Joy Project and find it. Um, yeah, it's one of the world's largest kind of projects of its kind, and anybody can participate.
Oh, that's amazing. So, for those of you listening, you can have your organization be part of this if you just search the Big Goal Project, even if you're, sorry, Big Joy Project, even if you aren't attending. Okay. If someone walks away remembering just one thing from our conversation today, what do you want that to be?
I think it's that work is such an unnecessary cause of suffering. Um, Work does not have to cause suffering. A lot of unnecessary suffering happens at work. And it turns out that if we shape those work environments in a human way, we optimize for humanness through a series of practices and rituals and a culture that supports well-being, then it's better for everyone. It's better for the business. The business does better. The organization has better performance. You have lower turnover and all these things. And I think as leaders, you walk away with a more satisfied life. We talk to a lot of leaders. They've got a lot of you know responsibilities on their shoulders, and at the end of the day, you want to feel good about what you've done. And I don't think you're going to get lasting happiness from like quarterly returns. Just focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said we don't have to suffer at work. And people don't want to hear it, but some of that is like a conscious choice of,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's subconscious, they don't quite know it, but you get to control your own destiny. And of course, there are parts of work that aren't always great, but you
Yep.
can always make it better. And I think the Greater Good Science Center, I think it's phenomenal about what they're doing. And I think it's going to help and has been helping over the last 2 decades, like lots of humans at work. Okay, well, it was amazing to spend time with you. I wrote down when your session is. That is going down Friday, March 27th from 8:30 to 10. It's the leading edge of well-being science. New keys to changing your brain for the better. I almost could not read my own handwriting there. And I can't wait to join your session. My session is going down on Thursday at 2:05. It's called Unlocking Potential, Thriving with Neurodiversity in the Workplace. We would both love to see you there. You can still grab your tickets, and it will be linked below. And such a wonderful time talking to you today. I look forward to seeing you in person in Colorado in a few months.
Sounds great. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you there, Sarah. And thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Awesome.